Thank you for joining today. My name is Keith Karras, and I am the Information and Networking Specialist here at Winkle Electric. And today I will be going through production data and kind of the importance of data in manufacturing today. As far as throughout the presentation, if you have a question, please feel free to either use the icon up the top there. You should see a face with a hand. There's a raise hand button. You can use that, and I can either try to stop and answer your question, or if you show the chat, which looks like a little chat bubble up there, you can enter a question in the chat, and we'll try to answer it as I go through the presentation. So again, thank you for joining, and I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So leveraging production data. So just as far as what we're going to go through today is what I'm going to talk about a little bit is, we want to talk about the importance of data in manufacturing and why in today's industry it's the needle mover and as businesses grow. And I kind of have separated this in three different phases that I like to determine when you're starting your data journey or wanting to start collecting data and how to start. So I'm going to go through a design phase, I'm going to go through a connect phase, and I'm going to go what I call the deploy phase of this. So let's start with the value, right? So what is the value of data? I know data is a very, very, very generic term when I say things, and every single manufacturing has their own set of data that they feel that's important to be able to make changes to their company or be able to identify need for improvement on a production floor. But as things grow, the value of data, intelligent applications these days that create useful information from raw data, and they utilize it to control and optimize processes. We can utilize the information that we gain from a production floor for better decision making, increase production, and as we start mining this data and understanding what we're getting into, the more and more that we go after it, it can be a scalable solution. So it's not one of those things where you can have a cap. You're always going to have a need for data, and you're always going to expand and grow on your capabilities that you're able to mine from your floor. And innovation. As things go forward, the more and more data that you have at your hands, the more and more things that your company is able to discover and learn to be able to take things to the next level. So the best way I guess I could start here is a industry use case. So here's the scenario. So basically in high-speed applications, product passes through different production stages in short time intervals. Quality problems can go undetected, often being found only after the product hits the retail shelves. While going through the painful process of initiating a recall of certain batch or lot, manufacturers are very interested in finding the root cause, right, for the quality issue. So one of the key challenges to performing root cause analysis is the availability of the entire production data sets from various stages of high-speed production for a batch and a serial number. An accurate aggregation of production data with timestamp for every batch and serial number is critical for finding the root cause and taking corrective action. So just kind of a use case that I'm throwing out there, how data can be used this is track and trace purposes and root cause analysis. So with that being said, just kind of giving an overview of things, of where things are at and what the value is, let's go ahead and step into the design phase to, let's say, how to get started mining your data. So where do you start? So how do you you have to ask yourself when you're out there and you're having the discussions where you want to go is, how do you currently collect and store your system data? Who needs to see the data? Where does the data need to be stored? And how fast does it need to be pulled or collected? These are very, very good starting questions to open that conversation, whether you're a production supervisor, whether you're a controls engineer on the floor, whether you're a quality manager, all these key players will have a say into where data needs to be seen and or analyzed in certain areas. Okay, so if you have, I'd say these 4 points, asking anywhere when you get that project to say, hey, we want to start, the big one is a lot of increasing OEE or, increasing downtime or decreasing downtime, without having that information at your fingertips, it's very, very difficult to be able to analyze things if you don't have anywhere to go back and reference a time in history of where things happen. So if you're just getting started, and this is where you want to take your company, then for data mining, then I think these are 4 questions that you can ask anybody and we can start getting the conversation going. So just kind of as a visual standpoint of things out there, this is a Rockwell controller. Whether it's a new piece of hardware or already existing on your plant floor, mining data is available for the taking. So if you have a automated plant, data on controllers, PLCs, drives are just waiting to be able to, now again, to analyze what you're actually pulling off those is, take some time and be able to discuss those things. But almost any device, whether Rockwell or third party, if they're enabled with an Ethernet connection and they're utilizing certain protocols, have a lot of information that can be generated off them. So, and when we go back to those starter questions, we decide, hey, how do we want to store and how do we want to move those data, right? So, and I discussed and there's 2 products that I'm going to discuss today about storing and moving data, and that's using FactoryTalk Historian and FactoryTalk Transaction Manager. It's a good way to move data around. So you think about it from a standpoint as you store. How do we want to store data from a controller? Well, we can use FactoryTalk Historian to store that data, to be able to reference those timestamps, to be able to determine OEE or any sort of track and trace capabilities, or discover why things went down at certain timestamps. So we can store all that stuff here. There's Move It. So a lot of from your ERP and business side is they want to see the data, and in a lot of cases, we'll see here, well, how can we move that data? I don't want to, let's say, per se, store it on the production floor, but I want to be able to move it to where someone on operations or IT or production can see it. In a lot of cases, that can be done with Transaction Manager. Now, where it can be moved, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen this or not, but typically, in the use cases that Transaction Manager is able to move data to a SQL server. So if you have the need where a lot of your production data and things need to be sent on the enterprise level, Transaction Manager does a good job of putting it into one of those IT or the business side environment as moving forward. So those are the things that you have to target. And these are the 2 products that I'm primarily discussing today. But that's kind of how, in oversight, how things are moved and stored, and what some of the software that Rockwell Automation offers to be able to help with this process. So that's kind of the design phase as I go through, right? Is you have your value, you understand, okay, now I need to design. I'm generalizing this very much as far as the production, but starting, like I said, to ask those questions and move forward can help move the design phase forward. And we can really, again, with the help of Winkle and Rockwell, we really can help get into those in-depth discussion of what you and your company are trying to utilize or move forward with those discussions. But like I said, the design phase is good. You answer all those questions. You say, okay, I figured out my data. I know what I want to do with it. I have an idea of what I want to display or be able to track. But we can't forget about the connect phase. And I mentioned the connect phase. So how do we get it all, right? You hear talks out there about industrial Internet of Things and, about Industry 4.0. But in reality, you can't have the Internet of Things without having Internet and Things, right? Connectivity bridges the gap with the machines to allow the interaction for data. So without a robust, so when I say having a connected phase, is you have to have some sort of backbone. A network infrastructure is key to be able to start pulling things together and consolidate information. It's the backbone. Network infrastructure is the ability to connect and integral monitor manufacturing. If you don't have this piece, moving data around is a very tough task to accomplish without putting all this stuff together. So I call it, laying the foundation for data collection. Without a resilient, robust, reliable, and secure infrastructure, it's very challenging to achieve your collection goals and where you want to move forward. And what I'm showing here is a very high-level overview. This is based off a CPWE model that Cisco, Rockwell, and Panwood have put together as far as, a connected enterprise, per se. So just something to think about when you're starting your data mining and your data collection journey. And with that being said, is you're not sure where to start with the networking side of things. Winkle can help with this. Winkle is a Rockwell authorized service provider that provides networking services to help kickstart this connect phase. So whether you need an assessment to go over and evaluate the industrial automation control, to be able to have that assessment in hand, to be, a lot of times I've seen whether you're a controls engineer on the floor or production, you have these assessments done to be able to have the ammunition to take it up to, let's say, a production supervisor or someone higher up to show them, how our networking stands as of today. And if you are a higher up manager and say, it's kind of sheds the light to say, okay, I really got to think about, connecting my network if this is the route I want to go when mining data. We have security posture. I know this doesn't really tie into as far as, getting connected, but to be able to evaluate security protocols to make sure that your network is secure, we can partner and do that. Design, right? If you need help making those connections, we can help come out with some layouts and some architectures to help you design and make the right connections, whether it comes to switches, Ethernet runs, if you need cabinets for the enclosure. Winkle is certified and authorized to perform these type of procedures. And as of right now, I am the person that does these type of services, so you'd be working with me on these cases. So that's my connect phase overview. And just to give you a brief overview of kind of what a production floor that I have in mind is when you take a closer look at the system, right? Drive system is a treasure trove of semi-structured data, right? It provides diagnostic parameters in real time. When the data is combined with manufacturing operating specifications, there are insights to be gained off these. We can provide operators, production employees, production managers, plant managers with valuable health and KPI. And if you don't know what KPI stands for, it's a key performance indicator. Just as a high body temperature may indicate a problem, in your body, a higher than usual operating temperature may indicate a problem with the drive system. So what's able to track that stuff is you can start being able to identify problems right off the bat and become more of a predictive type of situation versus a reactive type of situation. I guess we can talk about, Cisco switches provide system health of a network. Network utilization and switch health, going back to the connect phase. An increase in network activity is a red flag that you may have a defective network device or an unwanted device accessing your network. So this goes back to the security and connect phase. If you're familiar with the Rockwell platform, the Logix platform provides module diagnostics, right? But it's typically only viewed when there's a problem. What if the system could alert users, right, when an operator parameters are trending toward a hardware failure? Again, back to the predictive mindset. And one of the products I'm going to talk about today, Historian SE provides contextualized analytics on streaming data. It provides a data source for historical data and future data. And there's also, you can use it to, they have calculated machine learning models, AI, that offer through Rockwell and partners to even take it to the next step of predictive maintenance. So going back to that slide that I have about moving data, I kind of just wanted to introduce the FactoryTalk transaction manager. And if you haven't seen this before or know what this product is, as far as the products I'm going to go through today, it's going to be very, 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 on a surface level. Please feel free to reach out to me if you want to go deeper dive or have discussions. I'd be more than willing to help with that. But I want to identify the key features of these products and what is going to enable you to use these products to help with your journey forward. So Transaction Manager, this is part of that move string. So with Transaction Manager, we can help safeguard data integrity, including the ability to send notification of failures. So what that means is basically Transaction Manager have a service that kind of runs in the background that can identify if you're moving things around to make sure that your data is in fact, reliable and it is the correct things, and you're not just sending dull data or null data back to the database in the connection phase. So as you can see here, I have the overview here with my mouse here as I'm referencing this. Transaction Manager it could reside in many places. So it could be on a server. There's edge devices that are powerful enough these days that we can install the software right on the edge to handle the transactions. But from a Transaction Manager standpoint, what I want you guys to understand is that it's a way of moving data in a sequence time manner. You can do bidirectional communication. So as far as moving things to different places, what you'll see in the next slide is you have control connectors. So if you're familiar with FactoryTalk Live Data, and then there's OPC connections, as you can see right here. From the control side, there's Transaction Manager services that run in the middle here that are able to do what Rockwell calls transactions, to be able to enable yourself with enterprise connectors. So a big one you'll see is ODBC. A lot of databases you see these days have ODBC connectors that allow databases connected right into a system here. Transaction Manager doesn't store long history data. As you can see, there's caches of transactions. So what that means is there's a buffering service that can be set up that allows, I believe it's up to 2 weeks of data to be stored in a buffer if you ever lose connection to the enterprise. And then once the connection is restored, all that data is collected and pushed to the server so that no data is lost between the two. Bidirectional transactions. So use case, let's say, is you have, send something to the factory floor to verify something in the database needs to be sent back down to the control system. That can be done with Transaction Manager. So it allows a bidirectional communication of data to be filtered through these services. And just kind of more of the key features in the next slides here is you have enterprise connectivity. So again, the ODBC compliant databases. So Microsoft SQL and Oracle are very common databases that are allow connection to. Excuse me. Com Plus applications. So almost if you're a programmer or have custom C++ applications, it can connect to a Com Plus connector that can really allows from a connectability standpoint. If you already have custom applications running, it can connect to those as well. Control system connectivity. Again, it's a FactoryTalk product. It's a Rockwell product, and the Rockwell proprietary communication software is FactoryTalk Live Data. If you don't use all Rockwell devices, no worries. It has an OPC connector, which can be utilized with a lot of third-party stuff that's non-Rockwell. OPC is part of the OPC Foundation. It's an open standard that a lot of manufacturing software packages use for connection purposes. And the idea of overall for Transaction Manager is get the right data to the right place, right? So move the data not just from the control system database, but also from a database down to an HMI or control system. And again, just an example that I put up there is recipe management is a big thing that I see is from a higher level from the ERP. If they have things that can be driven with a certain recipe that needs to be made, having that connection, that recipe sent down to the control system to be able to run a part or a piece. So that's kind of the general overview of Transaction Manager. Moving data, can buffer it, bidirectional communication to bridge that gap between OT, IT, and be able to join things together. So as a gateway, per se. FactoryTalk Historian is our next component. So if you remember my little slide where there's store capabilities, right? If we want to bypass, if there's something that's already been used in a company, we want to come up with a little more robust. There's some advantages to going with Historian versus SQL, but I want to be able to enable you guys to make that decision. If you have an IT infrastructure that has all that data and don't want to reinvent the wheel and put a whole new Historian system when it already exists, that's when we have Transaction Manager. But there are some capabilities, like I said, that Historian is a lot more powerful than a SQL database. So what are some of the core capabilities for Historian? So we could turn silos of data into actionable information. So again, unlocking the value of data. And I'm sorry that's grayed out, but basically step one is capture. Make sure we capture the right data. So that's machine state, part counters, energy usage. That's what it says right here. I apologize that that's grayed out. We can store the data in SE, Historian, and then we can use applications to contextualize and apply analytics on the historical data collected. So kind of that 4.0 journey of how we want to unlock and understand what is going on our production floor. So just kind of a background of what Historian is Rockwell Automation works directly with OSI Soft, which is based off their enterprise data infrastructure, performance management, software products. They're initially a technology provider. They're now an Encompass partner. So SE Historian is, these two are branded together to be able to come up with the Historian package, per se. So it's an OSI Soft product behind the scenes. FactoryTalk Historian is a critical operation data store. It leverages marketing leading technology with Pi server from OSI Soft, and it's, if you have FactoryTalk USE, it's very tightly integrated with the Rockwell architecture. So this is part of Rockwell's operation suite. That they feel that's very important as far as tying a connected enterprise together. Part of the operation suite is also, SE and ME type of applications that you can all pile together to have a connected enterprise. So this is kind of how an infrastructure is put together with all the products that Rockwell offers just from a higher level. FactoryTalk Historian SE, it's more than just a time series of data store, right? It starts with a world-class Pi data archive, and you can optimize your data storage for high volume. So you can have more than 10 million records while providing the fast data retrieval. So there's an asset framework section here, as you can see right here. Asset framework adds structuring of the data to a user-defined structure in the logics controller. You can build asset templates, then reuse them to define multiple consistent data definitions. Now, once you gone through that process, and once you start adding some structure, you can now apply some analytics, events used in event frames and Pi notification services. So basically be able to use these services, which are over here in the analytics suite, to tie in the information and start being able to identify trends. Again, you'll hear me say a lot, from a reactive to a predictive maintenance type of situation. And in addition to providing, preferred connectivity to Rockwell, again, the historian system includes several third-party Pi interfaces for connecting to non-Rockwell data sources. So whether you have OPCDA for third-party control vendors, there's also an ODBC connector. We can connect into a database. If you want to use them in conjunction, you can also connect directly to a database with FactoryTalk Historian. There's an XML file importer to bring in manual data. So a lot of that you'll see XML is if you want to interface some charts with Microsoft Excel. So from an overview standpoint here, like I said, this is kind of the power that you can grow with Historian. And when I mentioned, the value of data, that scalable asset, Historian is a very, very, very scalable solution to where you can take things. So again, it's when I go back to the value, you optimize the data store, fast retrieval. The data storage requirements greatly reduced with optimized fast retrieval compared to SQL databases. So if you need things fast, there's classes in Historian that are set up that you can scan data and update data as fast as 1 millisecond. So if you have high-speed applications, variable data that need to be captured in very, very fast type of scenarios, Historian's your key player in this. SQL is not that fast. You're not going to be able to do things sub-millisecond on a SQL level. So this is just a simple architecture, right? So again, back to that scalable that I discussed. You have your data source where you have some controller tags, you have some HMI tags. Collection, there's, if you're familiar with the FactoryTalk architecture, you can do redundant interface nodes, storage on a Historian server, and then there's also products that I'll show to how to, trend them and report them mobile. And if you have SE applications, you can use Trend Pro or Trend X. So that's kind of a simple overview. So this is, again, architectures. There's local buffering. So again, you can actually have connections or interface nodes installed on different machines to collect data to feed up to the Historian server. Excuse me. What that capability is, if you can spread the the bandwidth and the usage. I shouldn't say bandwidth, but the hardware requirements on different machines to say, okay, I'm going to have this area of the plant run this interface node. And the nice thing about the interface node is it's that same scenario with Transaction Manager. If you lose connection directly to the Historian server, you're going to buffer that data and it's going to collect so that if there's a connection loss, you can store that data. And once the connection's made, it's all going to be updated. So you should, if you have very, very important information, let's say from like a food, if you're FDA or not FDA, oh gosh, I apologize. One of those, the data that's important that needs to be collected from the interface node to make sure that it's never lost and that you can always refer to. So again, very, very, very powerful. There's redundant data collection. So you can actually set up interface nodes that if you really, really are concerned about, losing things or hardware failure, you can set up redundant nodes to have backup and fail type of scenarios for Historian. High availability. So redundant interface nodes go down, you lose a whole section, it just picks back, there's no hiccup. High availability means you basically, if you lose something, it's like it never happened. So again, failover protection for reporting. And this is obviously with the newer versions that are out currently, which I believe the latest for Historian is version 7. So some reporting and analytics, just kind of, like I said, surface level overview. We can have event notifications, so you can use any tag based off a trigger, and it can generate a report based off that trigger, send an email, attach a generated report, embed an item value in the body of an email, send an SMS message to a mobile phone. So any tag with a historical value that we can trigger these things. Once we have that data, we can alert and be able to move that information around. So now that we kind of have the basis, as far as, hey, okay, here's what I need as far as a storage standpoint. I understand the value. I'm picking my products. Well, how do we go about deploying it? So how do we utilize all this software that I just discussed? Well, we have reporting, OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, and analytics. So these are the key indicators. Once you have all that in place, now we can start taking it and growing it and be able to take the data that's kind of mined inside this software and put it to packages that are able to, again, be useful and be able to read them and be able to make informed decisions from them. So here's just kind of a general overview of some of the products that we have in here. Not just Rockwell, there's Vantage Point, but many manufacturing facilities use data dashboarding methods like reports pinned to cork boards. Now that we have the transaction manager and the understanding of historian, we can find value in automated digital dashboarding. So we can use real-time visualization for quick decisions. The right visual for everyone, right? From operations to executives. Single source of truth. All reports generated from the same set of data. So we have one place. So for you standardize in a story and you could say, okay, I can point everything to my story, and that's where all my data is being filtered. I don't have, a data collection module on this device here. This one here is a different one. Single source that is able to bring all that data into one place. So again, FactoryTalk Historian, Vantage Point, Excel, let me go back. Excel Reporter are some of the software packages that enable that visualization for things. OEE. Manufacturers also like to track downtime in OEE. Performance tracking, needs, is a good starting point for OEE conversations. And again, I have another software package mentioned. I didn't go too much details, but Rockwell offers a metrics. So like, again, historian to metrics to be able to communicate those devices together and be able to track real-time OEE stuff. So I try to limit these to a half hour. If we scheduled a time slot for an hour, so if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. And I really appreciate your guys' time in letting me talk about this, and we'll be having more webinars in the future. So before I go, is there any questions that I can help answer? Okay. Well, if there is no questions, thank you again. Please, if you have to have any discussions about any of this stuff, I'm more than happy to come visit your facility and have a more deeper dive discussion on these things. And thanks again. Have a nice day, everyone.